The topic for Lesson 6 is adding graphics to your documents. Graphics include photographs, pictures, drawings, and any other image files. They can be inserted into the documents, or they can be inserted into frames within the documents. And there are two ways to insert graphics into a document. You can embed graphics, or you can link the graphics. When you link the graphics are not added to the document. Instead, the document contains a pointer or a file address that the system uses to fetch the file whenever it's needed. Embedded graphics, however, become a part of the document and they increase the size of the file. There are pros and cons of embedded and linked graphics. Because linked graphics require the document to be able to locate the file, sometimes linked graphics are a problem, because if you want to move the data files from one computer to another or one person to another, sometimes you lose the link to the graphics. Most people will use the embedded graphics option. I've jumped ahead a little bit in Lesson 6. I've gone ahead and opened up my Lesson 5 file and saved it with a new name, Lesson 6 Class News. Following the instructions in the tutorial, I've added a few paragraphs at the end of the document. I've also gone to this first paragraph and changed the paragraph style to heading 1. The rest of the added text uses the text body paragraph style. I'm going to show you another editing trick here. What I would like this paragraph to start at the beginning of the next page, and I can force a page break. I will put the cursor at the beginning of that paragraph, and then instead of pressing the Enter key, I'll hold the Control key down and then press Enter. The Control Enter trick will force text to the beginning of the next page. Now we're going to insert an image into this document. I'll position the text cursor at the point where I would like to insert the image, and then from the menu bar, I can select Insert, Image, and that will open up the Insert Image dialog box. The path in my example is set to a folder where I've graphics stored that I use in these tutorials. For your purposes, you should be able to go to the Pictures folder and locate some acceptable images, or you may have stored your images in a special folder that you already know about. Well, let me go ahead and insert one of these images. So I'll left click to select the image, and then I'll select Open. And that inserts the image into the document. Now notice that when an image is selected, that there are grab points at the midpoints and at the corners of the image. And you can drag these grab points by clicking and dragging to resize the image. There's another way to control the images. I'm going to double click on the image, and that opens up the image dialog box with a number of tabs. Let's go to the Type tab. The first thing I want to do is I want to click on Keep Ratio. If I start changing the width or height of the image and this is not clicked, I'll change the aspect ratio of the original image. So I want to make that on, and now I can enter precisely the width of the image on my document. That will automatically adjust the height as long as this Keep Ratio option is on. Notice also that this image is going to be anchored to a paragraph. I will set the horizontal position to the right side, and then I'm going to select the Wrap tab, and I'm going to have the text wrap around before the image. I can set spacing between the image and the text. So I'll just go ahead, left, right, top, bottom, and add 1/10 of an inch of space. I also have an option to turn borders on and off. So in this example, I'll set all 4 borders. And now I'll click on OK and see the results. Now you see that the image has the text wrapped around it, it's moved to the right side of the document, and it has the size I specified. You've seen how we can insert an image into a document and how we can control the properties of that image. If you're doing a lot of this, if you're inserting a lot of images, you may want to use the shortcut or the tool Insert Image that's provided on the Galaxy toolbar. That tool operates the same as selecting Insert Image. In this example, we inserted an image from a file that we had available. There are times when you're creating documents when you want to insert an image and you don't have an image handy. Well, the internet provides a great source of images. I'm going to switch over to my web browser, and I use Firefox for my browser. And right now my browser is displaying the Bristol Village Computer Club homepage. You can find that at bvres.org and then click on the Computer Club tab. There are a lot of handy links that are available through this homepage, one of which is Google Images. And in Google Images, you have a search bar just like any Google search. But in this case, I'm going to look for some picture of a flower. In particular, I happen to like black-eyed Susans or Rudbeckia. And now I have a whole collection of images available from the internet. And let me choose one of these images. And there's information that tells me the size of that image. Now here's the trick. I'm going to right-click on that image, and then I'm going to say, copy the image. Then I'm going to go back to my document, place the cursor wherever I want the image to be, and I'll say, edit, paste. And now I've added that image to my document. Of course, it's way too big, so let me grab the little corner grabber here and change the size. Let me double click on the image, and in the image dialog box, let me change the size to about 1.5 inches, and let me make sure that it's shifted to the right of the display, anchored to the paragraph, and with the text wrapped before it, and with a little buffer between the image and the text. I'm going to add a border, or add borders actually all the way around, and I can add padding between the image and the border. Let me increase that. I'll do it quite a bit just so you can see how it works. And I'm going to add a shadow off to the bottom right of that image. Let's see how it looks. So there you see the image added to my document. Now I said put it to the right, however, this image is interfering with that. Let me add a little blank paragraph to make room for this new image. In the new image, you can see the padding that I added between the border and the image, and you can see the drop shadow that I added. So the point is, if you're enhancing your document by adding images and you don't have an image handy, you can always use Google Image Search, find an image, copy it to the clipboard, and then go back to your document and insert or paste the image from the clipboard. Another way to enhance your document with images or drawings is to use the drawing tools that LibreOffice Writer includes. You'll see these tools at the bottom of the screen. If these are not displayed on your version of Office Writer, go to View, Toolbars, and toggle the drawing tools on. I've also messed around with my LibreOffice document and added lots of dumb text here, just so that I can demonstrate how we wrap text around images. In this case, it's going to be a drawn image. I'll go to the drawing toolbar, and under the symbol area, you'll see I have a lot of different symbols that I could use. I'm going to choose the smiley face, and I'll just go out here somewhere in the document, and I'll click and drag a smiley face. And you notice that that smiley face right now is covering up some of the text. We'll take care of that in a little bit. Also notice that when a drawing image is selected, that the formatting bar changes to the graphics formatting bar, and if in the sidebar you're using the properties option as opposed to the styles and formatting option, if you're using the properties option, a lot of the graphics image tools that are shown on the formatting bar are repeated in the sidebar. One of the properties that I can adjust for this smiley face image is the area color. I'll select the color that I would like and maybe change that smiley face to a yellow color. You notice that the line has defaulted to a blue color. Let me change that to black, and let me change the width of the line to 1 point. Just to make it more dramatic so you can see what's that affecting. Take a look at the smiley face, and if I make it 3 point, you'll see what happens. I'll back it off to maybe 1.5 point. So, in the graphics properties sidebar, as well as in the graphics formatting toolbar, I can adjust a lot of the properties of a drawn graphic image. I'm going to right-click on the smiley face, and then I'm going to select the Wrap Optimal Page Wrap option and see what happens. Now you see that the text is wrapping around the smiley face. If I drag the smiley face to a new location, the text remembers how to wrap around that drawing image. I'm going to go ahead and add another graphic from the drawing tools. This time I'm going to select from the call-out list of tools. I'm going to select the cloud option, and then I'm going to drag out a cloud graphic. And as long as that's selected, I can move it around, and I can even get on this little point here and drag that around. And while I'm at it, I'm going to change the color of that cloud to white. And I'll change the color of the line around the cloud to black. And I'm going to right-click on that graphic and again set the wrap to optimal page wrap. And there's one more trick. I'm going to double-click on that graphic. And when I do, you'll see a flashing text cursor appear in the middle of that cloud. And I can enter some text. And just like any other text, I can format that text. I can make it bold. I can change the font. Maybe this is a good place for Comic Sans. I could change the color. I can add a drop shadow. All of the formatting things I can apply as long as the text that I've entered into that graphic have been selected. While we're focusing on the LibreOffice Writer drawing toolbar, let's have a little bit of fun and mess around with some of the options. But first, a quick quiz question. What if I want to force the system to go to a new page? Right now I'm on page 2 of 2 with a cursor there. I could just hit the Enter key several times and add enough blank paragraphs to get me to the new page. But there is a trick. If I use Control Enter, it will force the system to jump to the top of the next page. Let me scroll down and make some room here. And let's explore some of the drawing tools available, starting with just a regular line. And I click, and I drag, and I get a line. Now, when that line is selected, I can get to the drag points, and I can move those around. If I hover exactly on the line part of this, I get the double arrow cursor, and I can drag that object around. How about the lines and arrows tool? There are actually a whole bunch of different kinds of arrows. In my system, when I'm capturing the video, unfortunately, a lot of these have fallen off the bottom of the screen. But I'll just choose one of them, and I'll click and drag, and notice that the point of the arrow is at the end. If I click and drag in this direction, the arrow will be pointing in the opposite direction. There's a freehand curve drawing option, and I can scribble around here and just draw any old thing. And again, if I'm very careful and I get the cursor right on that curved line, I can get the four-way arrow and I can move it around. I can also drag the grab points and change it that way. There's a Polygon Tool, and I'll just click, 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 click. When I get close, I'll double click, and that will finish the polygon. Once again, I can drag that around. On the left side of the drawing toolbar is the select arrow, or the select tool. If I click on that, I can go ahead and select any of the objects on the screen. If I click away from anything, I will be deselecting. Let me create a just plain rectangle by clicking and dragging, and notice that the default color for that rectangle was blue and the border line for that rectangle was blue. But I can mess with that. Just like before, I can click and I can select a different color to fill that, and I can select a different color for the border, and I can select a different width for the border. There are a lot of things I can do with that. In addition to filling with color, I can fill with a gradient. And here I'm using a linear gradient, and I can set the starting color, and I can set the ending color, and I can adjust from a linear gradient to an axial gradient, or ellipsoidal gradient, or quadratic, whatever that is, and a square gradient, all kinds of things. Also, on the graphic formatting toolbar, if I click right on that area style tool, I get a list of standard gradient fills. And there's all kinds of options available there. And once again, I can change that from radial to axial to linear. In addition to gradient fills, there are hatching options. And there are a whole list of different hatches that I could use. In addition to hatching, I can choose a bitmap. And there's a whole list of standard bitmaps that I can use. And these are repeated on the graphics formatting text bar. Let's explore some of the other drawing options. We have rectangles with rounded corners, we have squares, we have ellipses, we have circles. If I create a circle, it's a perfect circle. If I create an ellipse, I can create any size variation for ellipses. Let me just get rid of those. And we have triangles, isosceles, right triangles. We have a whole collection of basic shapes, like a little pie chart symbol. There it is. When it's selected, we could change it to a gradient fill, or we could change it to some kind of hatching. We have the symbols, including the smiley face, and a lot of other symbols you'll have to check on your machine because they're falling off the edge of my video capture area. There are arrows that we can use. There are stars. And once again, we can fill those with different bitmaps if we like. And we can move them around. There are a bunch of flowcharting tools available. Again, too many to go through one by one, but if you're trying to create a diagram that includes flowcharts, all of those symbols are right here available for you to use. Callouts include something that has a pointer. So if you want to call someone's attention to an area, you can use one of the many callout tool options. There's also something called font work. And in font work, we can choose all kinds of strange shapes for fonts that we enter. Let's just try one. And let me see where it went. It's a little big, so let me try to, oops, we go down here and try to select that font work and drag it to a little more manageable location. And maybe I don't want the word font work in that graphic, so I'll double click on it and I'll type my own words. To use for the font work type graphic. Let me force a new page, Control Enter, and give myself some more space to play around and experiment. One of the options over here in the sidebar, in addition to properties and styles and formatting, is something labeled Gallery. If we open that up, you'll see that we have a whole collection of categories of gallery things. If we select the arrows, we have a whole collection of arrows we can use. Let me choose one of them and right click on it and say Insert it. And let me make that a little smaller and move it around a bit. So I've inserted this graphic from the gallery. There are bullets. There are computers. Suppose I want to insert this graphic. I'll double click on it. Like the look, so I'll right click and say Insert and move it around a bit. What happened? What happened to the little arrow thing I had? Well, what happened was the arrow was selected. Let me undo a couple of steps so you can see what's going on here. The arrow was selected when I inserted a new graphic in it, and in that case, this graphic was replaced. If I deselect the arrow and insert the new graphic, it will not replace the existing graphic, but will be added to the scene. So be careful. If you have a graphic selected and you insert a new graphic, you'll be replacing that graphic. Well, in addition to the computers, there are a lot of diagram symbols or environmental symbols. I don't know why a buzzing bee would be considered part of the environment, but, oh, it's an endangered thing. So that's another gallery symbol that I can insert into this page. Also, there's a category of finance, category for people, school and university, books. Right click, insert some books, resize them, move them around, resize them, and once they're selected, they can be treated like any other graphic. If I double click on that graphic, I get the image dialog box and all of the things that we did before with our images we can do with these inserted graphic images. There are also sounds you can actually build into documents. We won't worry about those. So there's a whole collection of things you can use from the gallery. One of the tools in the gallery includes backgrounds. And if I select one of these backgrounds and I right-click on it, I can insert this as a background to either an image or to a page. So let me zoom out a little bit. You can see that that background filled the whole page inside the margins. Let me undo that. There's an endless number of things we can do with these graphic objects. For example, I selected that little B object, and over here in the sidebar, I can actually rotate that object. And there's all kinds of things available. We don't have time for all of them, but one last trick. I'm going to create a circle, and I want to change the area from color to a bitmap. And one of the options, I have a whole list of bitmap graphics, remember, that I could put in there. But suppose I don't want any of those. I can also import my own bitmap. And here from my import dialog box, I'll set the path to some graphics that I have. I'll select one of these and say open, and actually import my own graphic shape for that object. So, briefly reviewing the points to remember about graphics. Graphics can either be embedded or linked. Embedded graphics become part of the document and they will increase the document file size. Linked graphics do not increase the file size. Also, if a linked graphic is changed, the next time the document is printed, it will use the latest version of the graphic. However, if a document file is moved to a new computer, the linked graphic images must also be moved so that the document can find them. Graphic images can be set to have the text wrap around the graphic image. And graphic objects can be filled with solid colors, gradient or shaded fills, bitmaps, or hatching. And so, unlike the old scribe that had limited tools to work with, you have virtually unlimited tools as you're creating your word processing documents.